two hens at each other, fighting like mad, you know, pulling off feathers flying. And Kitty stood there very philosophically, nodding her head and saying, "No wonder we do that," she said. "When our ancestors did that, She was referring to our evolutionary time and how we had to go through all that, and now we continue. You know, what is this habit? What I'm trying to say is, it's the habit of so many lives, not only ages, but lifetimes. And therefore what Baba does is, what you have to do is, you have to replace that habit. After all, we can form the right habit. The habit to remember him, the habit to love him, the habit to remember him not only when you're relaxed and feeling fine and in the mood to remember him, but at those very fine points of a thing, like when you're just getting angry, or just about thinking something you should not, or just you're frightened, or just when your car is being knocked out, at that very point to remember it. That again is a habit. Didn't Baba say, keep on remembering me so that it'll be a habit with you, and when you are dying you will remember me. So all these are just the habits, and habits, the other habits can never leave you. You have to leave it. Habits are there, everything is there, nothing is going to leave. Our attachment to it has to leave. We have to leave that. And then we have to attach ourselves to this habit, make it a habit. It may sound dry, dreary to begin with, but in time, when that habit develops, it is a joyous, blossoming thing.
The easiest people to explain Baba to with no explanation for me have been children. They say, "Who's that?" And I say, "Meher Baba." And they, "Oh, I'm a Baba lover." And that's all. Nothing to say.
You see, Baba showed us from the very earliest that nothing was too small where it concerns him. Nothing is unimportant, nothing is too little. If he gives you an order, it's not only the big orders that mattered, it's the very littlest ones. They were just as important. And we would learn with experience by trying to, supposing Baba told you, you have to take care of yourself, you know, you have to dress well, you have to eat well. Supposing everybody else is not getting that. And supposing Baba calls you at a certain time and you say, "Oh, who cares for me? I don't mind if I don't eat," or all. Baba will trip you up on that. It's not for you anymore. So like for instance, when Baba had given an order to Mehran not to read anything, I, on the other hand, was to read, but only what was there, which was a weekly magazine or some books that were given by Baba. Not spiritual books. None of us were told to read any books, even about Baba. When we were first there at Mehrabad, in that very cloistered life, very few of us women, there was no reading of spiritual books, not even my books, Baba said. So there was that. But when Mehra was told not to read anything, at least I read some books of knowledge, or some, things like that. Any fiction material that would be there, that happened to be there in the library, like a detective story or something. Not at that time, that was later, but still I could read. I could read a magazine. But Mehra was told not to read at all, which meant that she could not even read when there was a tin on the shelf in the kitchen in which there was tea or coffee, and that tin might say Quaker Oats or whatever. She could not even read that. It's not just that you cannot read, "Oh, but this is all right. What is there?" This is only is a label of a tin that we're using to put coffee in or sugar in. So then I had to go around sticking paper on those labels. So none of the boxes had any labels readable, which is a great credit to the ones who, like Naja and the others, who saw to the cooking and making the tea and the coffee, because they knew which tin had what, because whatever was on it had to be covered. No reading would be no reading. What I'm trying to say is, when you're doing for Baba, it has to be done to the very precise limit. Not just, we cannot be careless with Baba's wishes. It cannot justify. We do. Mine does. We say, oh, but this doesn't matter. Baba wouldn't do that. But one's attention, like we had to, apart from these little orders, over the years, over time, we became so automatically sensitive to what Baba would want before he had said it. So totally focused on what Baba wanted. Full attention, full focus, at least from the ones whom he had around him. There was to be no diversion, no of anything, except what he had placed. So he would place those diversions for us. We would play badminton with Baba in the morning, outside under the tin, which is now the tin shed. There used to be no tin shed then. Or there were many little games, pelicans, and Baba was good at all. And there wasn't much time even really to think of games, even those little things, except when Baba would start playing. And we would catch him. We could not catch him cheating, but we would know sometimes he would cheat just to challenge us whether we could catch him cheating, and we never could. He always got away with it. Even when we challenged him, said, no, 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 this wasn't it. Baba said, all right, I'll do it again. I'll do it again and again. And he would do it, and we'd never catch him out on that. So Baba would, but there again, even through games, even through these ordinary daily things, we would get our thing. Baba didn't say, now everybody sit down, this you must do, and this you must not do, and this is the way it is. Not like that. Just in the doing everyday work, the duties, the little duties, the big, even while we were doing everything, all this exactly as Baba had said, and for Baba, even then we could get so involved in that Baba would pull us out like this, and only then we would realize how deep we were in it. For instance, like supposing Baba had told us to play a game. Now, you're not always in the mood to play a game. In fact, you're not often in the mood to play a game, especially when you have this to do and that to do, and Baba said this must be done, and there's not the time, and Baba will be coming back. And Baba says a game. So then we have to play the game. We have to do it because Baba said it. But once you do something to please Baba, before you know it, you like. You really, once you start, you love being in it. Oh, of course, a game is all you wanted. That's exactly what you wanted. So you put all of yourself in that game and really enjoy yourself till you get so involved. I mean, we would shout, we would something, no, you threw the ball right, I did not, I saw you, I didn't, you are so-and-so, and this crowd, this cacophony of women all together when we'd go to a crescendo. And we were completely immersed in the spirit of the game and in the fight of the game. Then suddenly we would hear just a clap from Baba. I can't do it. Baba's clap was very beautifully different. And then when the clap would come, no matter how much commotion there was, Baba's single gentle clap would come through. We've seen that again and again on many occasions. I can tell you many stories where this has happened. So we would all stop and look at Baba. Suddenly realize Baba's here, and we would say, and Baba would say, enough, bas, throw it all down. So we would throw it down, and not only throw down the instrument of the game, but throw out also the whole implication of it. The game was dropped. Not only the bat and the ball, the instruments of the game were dropped, but the game was dropped from your mind, like that. That is what Baba would in everything do. Have us, whenever he would bring something out between two people. Once it was brought out, aired, finished, dissolved, and then Baba would say, forget it. You'll be involved in it 100% when you wanted it, but once that is over, you have to drop it. Forget it means completely drop it from your mind. So there's nothing that you carry. And that is what we all should do. Even sometimes when there are moments of anger or moments of this, it is all right. It is all right to be angry between two people who are very close. Friction comes only when the two objects are very close to each other. There's no friction like this. The sparks cannot fly when two stones are that apart. It's the very closeness, so it is a complement. It is a good thing. It means how close you are when this friction happens. But once that's done, then that should be dropped, finished. It should help. But if you carry that over here, next day and the third day, then it goes deeper. Because all this friction is of the surface. It's only the surfaces that come close together and there's the friction. In the depth, there is not that. So in the depth, there is the absolute unity, like we were, so many women with Baba, each from a different way of life, each from a very much a personality in herself, each one very much a person. There was Princess Norina and Countess Tolstoy and Elizabeth, Patterson and Kitty and Ron and all Margaret and all the Western group, and there was all of us Indian women. And yet we were all together, put together. So there's bound to be, we're so close together in a very restricted pattern where you cannot be independent, where you cannot do things on your own. You cannot do your thing. You can only do his thing the way he has set it out before you. There's bound to be these little things, but that would be only of the surface. Inside, deep down, our purpose was one, our heart was one. We were there only for Baba, and all we wanted to do was only be there, nowhere else on earth or nowhere else in the universe, anywhere but where we were. So that is of the surface. So through these little things Baba would work. Even these frictions are the things that Baba was working on each one. These were opportunities to control yourself or to learn or to give and take. These give and takes can only come when you're that close. But one of the biggest things that for the Westerners who were there with Baba was the absolute lack of privacy. There were no rooms. There were no just rooms saying, all right, 2 people can share, 3 people can share, and this you can do whatever you like with your things and in your room and settle yourself. No. You know the study hall up there in Mehrabad? Well, that's say one of those big rooms where all the Westerners were there. There were the beds close to each other, means with little passages in between. The distance between each bed was a passage to move in and out, like the distance of a window. But all the beds were there, all the women were there, and sometimes when they wanted privacy, naturally they wanted a room to themselves. So how would they create a room? The bed that they had, these iron beds, iron cots, they would put sheets or a muslin sari that Elizabeth would get. They would put it round the bed, curtain up over the rods, like a mosquito curtain, but not gauze. It would be a cotton thing. So there was a little tent of your own. So you could sit in there and do your thing. Of course you heard people, the others talked, or some sang, or some quarreled, or some laughed, or some said, sorted the pets. Whatever, all the activities, the normal household activities would go on around them. But they felt, she felt, oh, this, I'm in my room, just that. And to see that, it was a beautiful thing. The way they did that batch of Baba's lovers, the Westerns who were with Baba, I really, if I had 5 hats, I would take all of them off to them. And I'll tell you some of the things, like Norina, for instance. Everybody was doing whatever work they were doing was for Baba. If they didn't want to be disturbed, it is because the work is what they're doing to please Baba. But Baba's working through how they would react if they were disturbed. That is Baba's working on them. So Norina was doing these writings for Baba. She could write beautifully. She was a beautiful person. So she was sitting in her tent, in her bed, with all covered, and writing away some articles for this book for Baba. And that's upstairs. We are downstairs. The east room is where Mera and myself and the other girls are, some of them. So Baba comes in and says, "Where is Norina?" And I said, "I don't know, she must be upstairs. Go and see if she's upstairs." So I go, run out, go prep. And sure enough, I see Norina is in her bed, covered up. I can't see her, but I know she's there. So I come down, I say, "Yes, Baba, she's there." "What's she doing?" I said, "Baba, she seemed to be, working." "Okay, go back now and tell her I forget the message." Some small thing. So I go back up the steps, and I said, "Norina, yes? Baba says, have you done such and such?" Yes, of course, yes, I have done." So, "Yes, very nicely," she says it, just gently. "Yes, I did that." I come back. Baba said, "What did she say? Did you tell her?" I said, "Yes." "What did she say?" She said, "Yes, Baba, I've done this." Was she irritated? Was she angry? "No, I don't think so, Baba. She said, go back and give her the same message again." So I go up, back there, back up those steps, and now I'm not traipsing over the steps like I did the first time. This is a little slower. This is the third time by now. And I said, "Norina, yes?" The voice goes higher. I said, "Baba says, but I told you, yes, of course I've done it. And but you tell Baba, Baba didn't." The whole voice the tenor is higher, you see. So I said, "All right." So I could even feel through the curtain that the way she was adjusting the writing there, that she was getting irritated. So I come down. Baba said, "What happened?" I said, "Baba, I told her." "What did she say?" She said she'd done it. Whatever. Was she irritated? Well, her voice was higher, Baba, and she seemed like, "Go back and tell her." So by now I go back and I'm trudging up those steps. This is too much, goes on. And by now I'm also not very happy about saying Norina, because I know she's going to blow up top this time. So I say, "Norina," she said, "Wah! What is it? I cannot even write, and I'm doing it for Baba, and why do you come and keep on interrupting me?" And I said, "Norina, Baba sent me." I know, but I told you so often that I've done it. And you, all right, and I just run back. Baba says, "Did you tell her?" "Yes, Baba." "Was she irritated?" "Oh, yes, Baba." "Go and call her." Then she comes, and I forget now, but it always ends up with an embrace and a thing. But you see what I'm trying to say? She was doing Baba's work, writing, which is a beautiful thing, that the only way that she could do. But Baba's work was Norina. And while she was doing that work for Baba, Baba was getting her goat to do working on her. So that next time the whole situation, the same situation, was different.
Did anybody ever guess that Baba was trying to get their goat?
Oh yes, Baba will get a rise out of you, especially when I've seen Rana or Kitty determined that they would not, and especially when that happens, like somebody comes on a stage and says, "Well, I'm going to make you laugh today, everybody, be ready," and then you say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to laugh. Let that man do his worst or best. I'm not going to laugh." And you end up laughing. I know it from my own experience. This was in London in 1952. So, in the same way, so you come and say, that's not going to happen to me. It happened to Norina, it happened to Kitty. It's not going to happen to me. I know now. And but you lose every time. But the masterly way Baba would conduct it is not like as I'm telling it now. Not only his very presence, but the way Baba would do it. Just like the master craftsman, And of course he needs different people, he needs different moods, he needs different, it's like an orchestra needs many kinds of instruments. If everybody played the cello, there would be no symphony. So Baba needs the different instruments. He does not want uniformity, only unity. But we mix it up. We say we should all be the same, we should all be without anger, we should all be without... No, then what would Baba use for that? The first of all, the main thing is that you are Babas. The whole thing, that whatever we talk about, it only starts from there. If you're not Babas and you're doing your own thing, then that's we're not concerned with that. But when you are Babas, then he makes use of it. He works on it the way he works on you, so that even the things that you are not very happy about in yourself, Baba will make use of them. He will make use of them, and before you know it, you will lose it. But you have to give it to him. Therefore, usually when Baba takes over in a critical situation, how often I've heard others say, oh, that I had given up. And that is when he takes over. Only when you are really helpless, when you come to the point when you know there is nothing you can do about it, that you have got helpless about it, so that you withdraw inside of you, you withdraw from it. And then, sure enough, that's the point when he always takes over. And he does a much better job than any of us can do. So, like the time when Eruch tells that story, but then you've also read it. It's in that book also. Like Eruch would say, there they would be around Baba, taking care of his person, being on guard, alert all the time. Because they would be on must tours, which is not in ordinary circumstances. It's when there is such a rush of people, of crowds, of trains that are jam-packed, that people can't even get in through windows and things like that. So those times when they were given the opportunity to feel that they're looking after Baba. And yet, at times like that, if a situation came up, a situation that was beyond them, when they knew that they were of no use in this, that this was something that's beyond them, Baba would take over. And they would be witnesses, and they would see how Baba would do it. I won't tell the whole story, but just as I've come so far, I might as well say what I'm trying to refer to. Like in the train, when Baba, Eruch, and some of the Mandali were to go, for some reason, of course for his reason, Baba was traveling, doing more traveling during the time when there was no trains available, no seats available in trains, because it was a reflection of war, you see, wartime, when just the military were given first preferences, and just at that time, Baba was going back and forth on must tours and traveling and making plans. And so at this time when they were, by great persuasion, that again is a long story, but they got into this compartment in which the Indian military were seated, some of them. And when Eruch went and pleaded, he talked about his elder brother, couldn't we just get a seat? Just a few of them. Somehow they were in that expansive mood to say, all right, come in. So Baba and the men Mandli who were with him, they were allowed to come into the train where this military personnel was seated, going to fight with the guns and everything, all in uniform. And Baba and all, Eruch selected a seat that was in a corner. You see, in the British times, there were these compartments that had a seat, a horizontal, this way, a seat like that in the corner of the compartment, which was meant for the servants, so that the servants could be not mixing with the household. You see, that the servant, those who were serving, would be like that. In the British times, it was like that. So Baba and his men sat on the bench in the corner of the compartment reserved for the servants. Now, it so happened that before they started on the journey, whenever they would stop at Ahmednagar or Pune, or on the way, you see, to Baba lovers would be there to greet him, to give him, and Eruch's family, some of his aunts would always come over and give some sweets or something to take for the journey. And in those crowded journeys, it was not always welcome to the men. Of course, Baba. So here was when the train stopped. Was it at Pune, Eruch?
Yeah.
They brought this beautiful big tin of cookies, and Eruch kept pushing it away and said, "Don't! Oh, said Baba for Baba, but we have no time to eat. There won't be any. This in this crowded thing. This is just a burden. No! Keep it. So they pushed it in. You know what women are when they're in love. They're in love with God. So here, so that tin was in. Now there they were started on the journey, and the train was going. But what happened was, when they stopped at the station before the train got on, at the next station, some more military people came. More military personnel were looking for a compartment to get in. So they tried to get into this one, where some of this military were already in there. But for some reason they wouldn't let those others come in. They said, "Go find your own place. No place here." So what do you mean? What do you mean no place here? You got we can see you've got room here. But I said there's no room here. And this started, so the others just pushed themselves in, pushed their way in, and there was a tremendous spark between them. The train started, and as the train started, they were having verbal fight. First it was a verbal thing, giving each other abuse, and the train was going faster and faster. Now in the middle of nowhere, in a very speedy train, this little flame, the spark, turned into a fire. And these men, among themselves, one batch of military personnel with the other batch, were fighting, really fighting. And at that point, Eruch, according to his story that he related, he said, he got scared that here is Baba along with us, and how do we, this is an inferno. Once the military start fighting with each other, they were raising guns to butt each other on the head with the butt of their guns, hit each other, and the abuses and the swearing, and it was a hand-to-hand fighting. And at that point, Eruch said, we didn't know what could you do? So then, in the midst of that, those people heard a clap. Like the clap I tell you about. And they all stopped. These fighting, swearing, these men who were mad at each other stopped. And the sound of the train, a running, speedy train, above all that, the clap was heard by all of them. They stopped. And they looked to the corner, towards the corner, the end of the compartment where it came from. And they saw a figure standing. A white-robed figure with his arms outstretched like this. And they couldn't believe it. It was like a vision. Baba took over. And he stood up on the bench. Before Eruch, anybody knew. This was now himself. They had nothing to do with it. They were out of the picture. They couldn't do anything. Baba got on the bench, stood, and clapped. And when they all turned round, he was standing like this. And then Eruch was speaking for him. What he was saying. He said, stop. And then he said, sit down. And then they all sat down. And then through Eruch, Baba gave a beautiful words to them. That here you are, you're going there. Look how much you're sacrificing, giving of yourselves to go and fight for your country. But if you fight among yourselves, how can you help your country? Isn't that so, Eruch?
Yeah.
And they just listened, and Baba said, sit down. And as one man, they all sat down. And Baba said, at the next station, you will all be treated with tea and cookies, sweets. Eruch didn't even know Baba remembered or saw that tin. So then Baba sat down and said to Eruch, Eruch, remember that tin, bring it out. And then when the tea was ordered, and then the next, when the tea came, they all had tea, and Baba served the cookies to them all. And they had such a grand, and they were singing and laughing and so happy. And when the station came, they all got down singing the national anthem. They all turned around and saluted Baba. Baba blessed them with a hand like that. he took over. But only when the men were absolutely helpless. It was beyond them. This situation was beyond them. They could do nothing. So then Baba always, he never fails. He never fails. Never fails his lovers. Take this back to him. Pass. Oh yeah, take this back to him. More than a second.
The true colors of Baba's flag, and if possible, the meaning for each color.
Christina, I don't know anything about the true color of Baba's flag, but the history behind it is this. That once it so happened in the early 20s, when Mehrabad was not settled as Mehrabad, but there were few who were there, who worked with Baba and all that, and when the military barracks somehow or other got repaired by the Mandli, and then there was a feeling of, settled feeling you may call it. It took a long time, about 1.5 years like that. In the meantime, people started pouring in and coming in and wanting to know who he is and all that. So people from Ahmednagar would come every day. Large numbers would come. And the Mandli who lived with him got fed up with these people, because in the meantime, Baba gave them a lot of other work to do and they couldn't do because Baba wanted them to attend to these people who would come there flocking around.